Public school advocates want Arizona voters to decide in November whether to rein in the state's fast-growing, free-spending school voucher program. Could the initiative face some headwinds? I'll ask one of its leaders right now.
Also on Sunday Square Off, hours after being praised by DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, Maricopa County Recorder Justin Heap claims he uncovered more than 130 non-citizens on the voter rolls. What if Heap was wrong? Julie Erfley's quest to destroy the weapon that was used to kill her police officer husband runs into a dead end at the Capitol. Why an Arizona lawmaker scrapped the bill. Ice at polling places. Limits on Airbnbs. And what's that smell next door? Just some of the record 2,000 bills our state legislators believe are solving Arizona's problems.
We start with a planned statewide ballot initiative for November that would ask voters to rein in spending on empowerment scholarship accounts and require private and parochial schools to follow many of the same regulations as public schools. The initiative is called the Protect Education Accountability Now Act. Joining us, Beth Lewis, Executive Director of Save Our Schools Arizona and a leader of the initiative. Welcome back to Square Off.
Thanks for having me.
I like giving folks a little bit of history. Right.
Yeah.
You have a history with this that goes back to 2018 when you were one of the leaders of an initiative that blocked an expansion of the ESA program. Tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Save Our Schools Arizona was actually formed when the legislature in 2017 passed universal vouchers. We said, this is going to decimate public education. We put it to the voters, we collected signatures, and the voters in 2018 said no, right? They said no by a 2-to-1 margin. And yet the legislature came back in 2022, discarded the will of voters, and passed universal vouchers anyway. And here we are.
And so go back to 2022, because there were questions at the time about why you didn't try to either head that off or, after it became law, reverse it. Why didn't you fight it back then?
Right, so we did try, and ultimately, you know, Governor Ducey at the time waited 10 days. He took a bunch of time out of the field, and we weren't successful in referring it. And so, you know, I think voters have had a chance now to look at the body of evidence for 3 years and see, okay, here are all of these examples of fraud and waste. You know, there are a lot of questions as to whether kids are safe, whether there's any academic accountability, and the legislature has had 3 years to make fixes, right? To put in guardrails to make sure that taxpayer dollars are being well used, that kids are learning, and they've utterly refused. And so, you know, I think now is the time to put this back in the hands of Arizona voters, right? The taxpayers who should have a say about $1 billion program with 0 guardrails.
And Governor Katie Hobbs, in her first 3 years, has also tried to push back, but not very hard, it seems, or just.
Well, I think she's up against a brick wall, right? Like, the Republicans have made it very clear at the legislature that this is the, you know, sacred cow, if you will, and that, you know, they're not willing to even put in place child safety regulations. And so, again, you know, we've helped craft bills. We've worked with lawmakers down at the Capitol for years and years, and nothing has been accomplished.
So here we are, 100,000 students enrolled in the Empowerment Scholarship Account program, cost of about $1 billion and climbing. Here's what your initiative would do. Bar families making over $150,000 from receiving vouchers. Require private schools to meet public school standards like background checks on educators. And bar parents from spending on non-educational items or luxury goods. Which of those bullets do you think will really make a difference with voters?
You know, I think voters, I've seen the polling, voters really want to make sure that our kids, all kids, are safe. And that's important to us as educators and parents. Voters are fed up with the fraud and the waste and the abuse and all of these stories. So I think reining in those non-educational spending pieces, the luxury items, and actually putting, you know, stricter teeth on that into law is really important to voters. And then I think voters are sick and tired of using their hard-earned dollars to subsidize a private education for the wealthy that, you know, they were already able to afford. And so voters have been really clear that that's not something that they want to shell out for when people are struggling to make rent or struggling to put food on the table.
I need to point out, reporting by Craig Harris of 12 News shows a high rate of unchecked spending by ESA account holders. Documents show unallowable purchases, spending explicitly banned under ESA program rules, might account for 20% of transactions. That's not dollar value, it's the number of transactions under the program. That's 1 in every 5 transactions. And clearly, Tom Horn, the superintendent, has struggled mightily to keep up with this. It's unclear whether he even has a handle on the program. And full disclosure, 12 News has sued the state school superintendent, Tom Horn, and state treasurer, Kimberly Yee, to obtain documents on ESA spending. And that's how we know a lot of this, because of Craig's reporting and the lawsuit to obtain the information. Would you like to see the ESA program just go away?
No, I mean, we have always been clear that the original program, or the 2011 program for students with special needs, special circumstances, should stay. And one of the things we've done with this really common sense package is to really preserve the flexibility for ESA families with students with disabilities. So there are a lot of carve-outs. The income cap does not apply. The testing component does not apply. But the safety components do, because all of our kids should be safe.
ESA supporters would say that every parent has a right to educate their child in the way they see fit. That's how ESAs fit in. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think this package doesn't really change those options unless you're in the top income tier for the state. What it does is it makes sure that the private entities and folks that quite honestly have come in as bad actors are no longer able to take in taxpayer funds if they're not able to prove that kids are safe, kids are learning, and they're using those funds responsibly. And so, again, this is a win-win. This was crafted with the support and guidance of ESA families, particularly those with special needs students who, were very clear with us, like, here's where we need to be exempted. But we really support this because all of our kids deserve a great education.
And so I wonder whether the initiative faces some headwinds that weren't present 8 years ago. So much has changed since 2018. The COVID pandemic had a big impact on parents' perception of public schools. Right now, we're in a moment where public schools are closing schools, having to close schools, lay off staff because of declining enrollment. How do you think that picture will affect voters when it comes to casting a ballot on this, assuming it makes the ballot?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, we knock a lot of doors. We've seen the polling, so we're really in touch with voters. Voters want this transparency, they want the accountability, but overwhelmingly, they love and support public schools. They want to see misused dollars go back into their local public schools. They know that if we have strong public schools, that we have a strong economy, we have strong communities, we have safe neighborhoods. None of that has gone away, right? Just because out-of-state special interests have poured a ton of money into our state, denigrating our public schools and our public school educators, it hasn't worked. Voters are still with us. And yes, some parents are making other choices, but 90% of our families are still choosing their local public schools. That hasn't changed. And over 90% of students with disabilities are still being served by their local public school.
What is your assessment, though, of those numbers? Again, declining enrollment, layoffs, school closings. Is that a result of all the school choice options in front of Arizona parents right now?
We're not seeing a huge shift from public school to private school because of the voucher. Again, we're continuing to see a lot of the vouchers are going to families that were already in homeschool or were already in private school. There is some decline, absolutely, related to birth rates, related to, affordable housing crises. And then, there is a small percentage of folks that are leaving. And unfortunately, because our public school system is funded, bare bones, almost worse in the nation, there's just not any fat to trim, right? There's no budget cushion. And that's why we're seeing school closures. It's not because there's some exodus from public schools. That's not happening.
You have until early July, to collect at least 256,000 signatures, probably more like 400,000 to get the cushion you typically would need. Can you pull this off? How much is that going to cost?
Yeah, I feel very confident we can pull this off. We've got incredible organizations and folks all across the state that have already signed up. They're ready to go. I think, back in 2022, we were sort of fighting hypotheticals like, this is going to cost $1 billion, and people weren't sure if that was true, right? This is going to be wide open for fraud, waste, and abuse. People weren't sure whether they should believe us, right? This is going to shut down public schools. they weren't really sure. Now there's this body of evidence, and so people are just rushing to our website, rushing to sign up to volunteer. So we'll be able to get, a huge amount of these from volunteers, from educators, from families, and also just from everyday folks who are looking to protect public education and make sure that all of our kids get what they need.
All right, Beth Lewis of Save Our Schools Arizona, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
When we come back, can this marriage be saved? A very public breakup between Maricopa County's top elections officials raises questions about the 2026 vote. But first, why won't state lawmakers vote to destroy a gun that killed a cop? And a programming note, NBC and 12 News coverage of the Winter Olympics in Italy will preempt Sunday Square Off on Sunday mornings through February. You can still watch us on the 12 Plus streaming app at 8 a.m. or on the 12 News YouTube channel. 12 Plus is the streaming home of 12 News. You can see all our Sunday Square Off coverage there. Download 12 Plus on your Roku, Fire TV, and Apple TV devices right now. Stay with us.